What's something everyone does wrong? Story 1. Driving. Reply 1. The phrase my dad has told both my partner and me is, assume everyone else on the road is an idiot and they will use any and every opportunity to prove it to you. Been a fairly defensive driver for 16 years, and I've only been in 2 minor collisions that I wasn't the cause of. It was the old person not paying attention's fault. Keeping gaps and watching the traffic around you for dangerous drivers does a lot to help minimize your risk. Reply 2. I drive the speed limit, but people are constantly riding my tail and honking their horns at me. I just don't see why they don't go around me. They want me to speed so badly. Why should I break the rules? Why can't Mr. Honky Horn just break the rules and go around me? Why are they so willing to be up my tail but scared to go around? Sometimes I think if I just put the emergency lights on, then they would go around. Reply 3. I try to be conscientious about my driving by signaling in advance, letting people in if they signal. I won't necessarily block them if I feel like they're trying to get in because I want to prioritize safety, but I go out of my way to make space for people who are signaling. Try not to block lanes or slow down traffic, etc. The problem is that everything that I mentioned is somehow considered bad driving by some people in the world. Reply 4. Driving tests are 90% luck IMO. Some of the worst drivers I know passed the first time, and some of the most cautious and rule-abiding ones took several goes because they were stressed. It was unusually busy, the examiner was a dick and threw them off, or the day of the test just happened to be a bad day for them. Reply 5. I believe with a high level of certainty that most people in my city have no idea what rules govern a 4-way stop. Whoever gets to the stop sign first goes first. If multiple cars simultaneously reach the stop sign, the person to your right goes next. So they roll up to the intersection and just hope it sorts itself out. Even the people who did know the rules were looking at their phones when they rolled up to the stop sign, so they don't really know which lane went last, and thus do not know when it's going to be their turn in the rotation. Story 2. Argue. Modern media has shown us that being loud and throwing accusations around is the best way to argue. The amount of fallacies and angry vibes that I encounter when just trying to make a point is ridiculous. I see or hear a ton of red herring and straw man arguments as well. People not responding to actual claims being made, preferring to go off on tangents they themselves created. And then if they don't get their way immediately, they say you are just trying to win, despite never actually refuting your point or presenting a valid counterpoint. Reply 1. Fallacies and persuasive arguments are something I didn't get to thoroughly explore until I took a college course. This means that unless you took an AP course in high school for it, most people are likely not graduating high school with the skills required to have an academic discussion. That means that, for the layman watching a debate, the victor of an argument is whoever performed better in optics and populism. Facts don't matter, and that's how we got to where we are today. Reply 2. I semi-recently found this out. Some people don't even try to actually follow the conversation. A lot of dogmatic religious people do this. That's not the point, though. The point is that asking them to repeat what you just said, watching them fail miserably, and then asking them how you're supposed to have a conversation with someone who can't even follow the conversation can be deeply upsetting to them. I'm not sure if it's actually helpful, but it does make them doubt themselves. A state of thought I don't think they are accustomed to feeling very often. Reply 3. Probably a good strategy in person. Doesn't work as well online, though I still might try it. The number of times I have to reread my comments to make sure I said what I thought I said because the other person went off on a tangent, and B, have to say something like, well, in my initial comment, I actually said whatever, can you respond to that? Is staggering. Reply 4. This is mostly because a huge percentage of people are not wielding language as a way to convey and understand ideas and each other better. They are wielding it as a weapon to win word games. In a discussion within a society that prioritizes understanding and not winning, if I'm making a point, I might be not the most optimum person to make said point. I might not be communicating the point as well as it could be, but that doesn't necessarily make the point invalid. And the listener, if they were actually engaging with my point, they may be able to use their listening skill and understanding to help bridge the gap and sharpen the point to a place where both people understand better. If that's how humans habitually engaged with each other instead of trying to win word games, the world would be a remarkably better place. Reply 5. This right here is why I've given up on interacting with most things. LOL, if I don't immediately agree with the majority, I'm just going to be shredded and no one is even going to attempt to be willing to have a discussion. Just, I'm right, you're wrong. They might even be right. They might have a valid point that changed my view, but they don't care about that. I'm automatically a target for daring to disagree. Story 3. There's a little stick next to the steering wheel that moves up and down. When you move it, it illuminates a light on the exterior of your vehicle that informs other drivers that you're about to make a turn, reducing the likelihood of a crash. Story 4. Load dishwashers. Reply 1. Remember that lots of people don't clean their dishwasher filters, let alone know they exist, after every couple of washes, and that the spray arms are detachable and can be rinsed out to make sure that there is no blockage. Reply 2. You'd think this would be self-correcting if they also unload and see the results of their actions. Basically, don't block things, especially the spinny bits and soap dispenser, and aim the dirty side toward the center so they benefit from direct spray. Reply 3. I always try to put as many things as I can in it. I'm like a master of cramming stuff into things. The main trick for having an extremely loaded dishwasher is, I try to make sure everything is placed over a free space so water can reach them, even if it's having to stand over something else. Reply 4. The same can be said of hand-washing dishes, too. I moved to the East Coast for college and ended up staying there for almost 20 years, where many of the buildings and apartments don't have appliances other than the stove and fridge in the unit. We also had dinky sinks. My friend taught me to suds up your dishes and stack them to the side, and then you turn on the tap to wash the soap off so you're not blowing through gallons of water while you're getting a particular bit of stuck food off a plate. My drying rack. Tetris is impeccable as well. Story 5. Reading, and I don't mean in general, but for example, when a new law or regulation is being considered, people don't tend to read the original documentation and just go by word of mouth. The same thing applies to policies, etc. Reply 1. Buddy, I'm a lawyer who spends a hefty portion of my day reading laws and regulations, and I don't trust myself, much less lay people, to properly read and understand every consequential piece of legislation or new proposed rules, to say nothing of analyzing and predicting the interplay it might have with existing laws and regulations, as well as how it would be impacted by existing case law or new judicial opinions. I think it's far better to have knowledgeable people you trust to fairly and accurately distill it down for the average layperson. Reply 2. Really? I challenge you to read the FAR, Federal Acquisition Regulations. It's actually the most consequential document for government and citizens, but it's hundreds of pages long, and I guarantee you, though you may be meeting your Kindle reading goals like a good girl, you'll never make it through. I also refuse to believe you have read your entire municipal code. Reply 3. Science stuff too. I don't expect people to go around understanding everything, but with a high school reading level, you can read the abstracts of a good portion of published scientific literature. It's not easy exactly, but it's not terribly difficult. And you'll be so much better informed than arguing with some jackass, like me, on the internet about your opinions. Story 6. Please stop putting library books back on the shelf you took them from. It's often better to leave them neatly on a return cart, on a table, or at the front desk, depending on your library. We scan books that are used without checkout to add them to our circulation statistics. It helps us prove traffic and learn which items engage the community. Flagging items as used in-house don't require identifying information either. It's anonymous. Reply 1. I can vouch for this since I worked in 3 libraries. Public libraries in particular look at stats because that's how they get money, but it does apply to academic libraries as well. One stat is, how many people enter the building? And yes, this does factor into funding. If you're near a library and need to use a restroom, do so. Seriously, that helps with funding, even if all you did was use the toilet. If you read a magazine because you're waiting for a bus and there's a sheet saying, please write what magazine or newspaper you read, then take 10 seconds and do so. If they see people reading a magazine, they'll keep the magazine or newspaper subscription. Otherwise, they might cancel it. A big reason we hate people reshelving? They do it incorrectly, and then other people can't find the book they want. It also makes work for us in terms of shelf reading. Oh God, that sucked. Shelf reading is basically literally going through every book on the shelf to make sure they are filed properly. And it's boring as hell and time-consuming. If you aren't sure how to put the item back, just give it to a staff member. We're trained in this, and would rather do it efficiently than shelf read. There's also a thing called weeding, which is where we get rid of items not being used for various reasons. Some people are utterly horrified when books are thrown out, but public libraries in particular have limited space, and if a book hasn't been touched in 30 years, well, we're probably going to dump it. If you read the book while waiting for a bus, we'll scan it as in-house use with no personal name on it linking it to you, and it'll show that someone used it. Again, this can help with funding since people are actually using the library. I'd also point out that libraries are one of the few places left where you can go for free, and it's more than just books. Many of them lend out music and video items. Some even go beyond by having tools and cookware, which is useful for single people in a city living in apartments who can't afford such things. Don't forget that most libraries also have social events. Reply 2. Genuinely appreciate this take. I had heard it from another librarian, but it was couched as, sometimes you can put a book back in the wrong place and it can be lost for literal decades. As someone who worked at a video store and often had to hunt down copies of movies that the computer said we had, I decided this meant, be really careful when you put books back, and if the place isn't exactly right, just put it in the shelf cart. Now, I can read this with my marketing degree brain, which barely gets used since I graduated, and go, oh, this is a KPM for the library, and I can help them bump the numbers up by making a very simple change to how I browse the library. Reply 3. Okay, I hear you, but I'm one of those people who spends an hour looking at every book in a section and then maybe reading one of them. I feel like I'd make a massive, annoying mess if I expected a librarian to reshelve every single one. Me reading the spine and being curious about the cover, taking it off the shelf, then deciding I don't want to read it, doesn't seem like circulation-grade usage to me. Am I wrong about that? Is a passing curiosity enough to be counted? Story 7. Brush their teeth. They get too hard and it erodes their gums, increasing decay. Reply 1. Guilty of this. Don't use much pressure. Dentists recommend electric toothbrushes now because they do good enough on their own if you just hold them against your teeth with minimal scrubbing action. Reply 2. My girlfriend has this issue but with flossing. The dentist had told her she was at risk of a few issues because her gum line is low around her molars and that she should be flossing more. Next visit, she's told she's flossing too often and too rough. The hygienist had to go over the proper flossing technique with her. Reply 3. Me. My dad convinced me only hard bristle brushes can clean your teeth. They're extremely hard to find, so we always used medium. I used to scrub my teeth too. Turns out I've been scrubbing off my enamel. I'm only 28, but my dentist told me I have extremely thin enamel and my gums are receding at 23 due to this. Had to switch to soft bristles and eventually got an electric brush. Reply 4. My mom, when I was young, told me you want to brush aggressively and on the gums. She's usually a pretty smart person, but falls for internet articles and misinformation at times. I now have an aggressive gum recession. This is the same woman who got rid of all of our candles when she read that breathing in the smoke from candles is bad for your lungs, which, while probably true in large, concentrated quantities, is ludicrous to think will happen when you have a casual candle burning in a room in your home. Story 8. Risk assessment. Busy worrying about low probability matters while ignoring high probability ones. If everyone in the US properly assessed risk, they'd be far more scared of cars and sitting, and far less scared of things like terrorists and sharks, for example. Reply 1. When my daughter was a baby, I was afraid of the implications of her receiving several vaccinations all on the same day. I asked the pediatrician if we could spread them out, and she agreed. Later I realized that we made 3 car trips to the doctor's office when we could have made one. It was much more likely that we would have been in a car accident than my daughter having a severe reaction to the shots. Reply 2. Interesting. Also, 3 times the exposure to potential pathogens in the doctor's office. That's gotta be a close one though, as there may be some real benefit to spreading them a bit. The thing that baffles me the most when driving is when people willingly choose long daily auto commutes for slightly higher pay, or ride an e-scooter or bike through traffic every morning. Reply 3. I vividly remember one of my college classes from 20 years ago, the professor addressed this phenomenon. He showed a chart of things humans fear the most: shark attacks, volcanoes, sinkholes, etc., versus causes of death. They were inversely correlated. Nobody is scared of heart disease, the most common cause of death, but tons of people are scared of shark attacks. Like 2 people on Earth died from sharks that year. Reply 4. People deal with fear in many ways. I don't find it strange that people react differently to risks that they feel they can control or mitigate versus risks that they feel they cannot control. Driving is risky, but it can be rationalized as, I'm a good driver, I'll be careful of other people, I won't drink, I'll wear my seatbelt. Flying is less risky by far, but if something goes wrong, it will be the fault of someone who you have no influence over, and there will be very little you can do once it happens. Nor was there really anything you could have done to prevent it. Loss of even the illusion of control is scary. Admitting that you ultimately have little control over the bad things that could happen to you is scary. Story 9. Critical thinking. Have your own thoughts about things that are happening or that you hear about. Connect ideas together, just for funsies, and compare facts with other facts. Critical thinking is when you don't simply take what you receive at face value. People seeing things that you aren't overthinking. They're simply thinking their own thoughts. They might be wrong, but it's good to practice anyway. Better than underthinking. Way, way better than taking everything at face value. Reply 1. Had this discussion today. Someone used a good analogy and the response was that it was not a good analogy because they were using themselves and it was a rare occurrence where it might not necessarily apply to their very specific situation, but they couldn't see beyond their situation and apply it as such. Reply 2. Sometimes it's curious to observe people watching TV news, especially in the US. A newsreel would start, first show some action and people look at it with blank faces. Then the news anchor tells whenever it was a great victory or horrible crime, after which people give the reaction. It's more fun when you've already seen one channel's version and see the same clip again, but from a different channel, and a completely different narrative with a matching reaction is given. Reply 3. Piggybacking on this, another good practice is to test your environment and tools. This allows you to learn their limits. This also applies to laws. Some people will disagree with this, but laws are guidelines that, if broken, typically have consequences. You can break the law, but you need to have a good reason and be mindful of the risks and consequences you'll suffer or inflict on others. Also, for the love of God, ask why the law is in place to better understand the consequences. This really pisses me off on the road. In cities, there are these terrible merge traffic lights in place to help stagger cars for interstate merging, but people just ride each other anyway, defeating the point. But the real kicker is when there is no one else at the merge lights instead of blowing through the red that automatically turns green while you fly by. People stop at the red and wait. For no other reason aside from the light being red, even though it will turn green as soon as you approach it. When I see someone in front of me do this, I instantly understand they lack any critical thinking skills or the ability to adapt to observations. Reply 4. A lot of time. Good critical thinking leads to unfortunate or upsetting conclusions. Coming to these conclusions, seeing the unfortunate realities around you that you usually can't do anything about can be really hard. It's probably easier to live your life if you don't think. It seems like a lot of people are unaware of the intricacies of the events that occur around them, and that lack of awareness doesn't seem to have any negative impact on their lives. In fact, in my experience, those people seem pretty happy. For instance, they don't have to think about why they're making a comment on another comment on a Reddit post. It's either because I'm insecure that I'm an idiot or I just wanted to express myself. I don't know. I'm only a mid-critical thinker. Story 10. I'm looking at my fellow dudes here specifically, but boy is there a thing with not thoroughly washing. I always wondered why it seemed like I could never shower as fast as other guys I knew. It felt like there was some inscrutable life hack that I was missing, where one could get fully clean in 30 seconds. Upon digging, I was horrified to discover that a lot of dudes simply don't wash their ass or legs or feet. They just let the soap run down their body and assume it's clean. The scrubbing is the mechanism that makes things clean, and the soap is just there to help the water do its job. And gents, I don't know what the hang-up is with your own butt. Just get up in there and scrub your undercarriage. That's one of the worst areas for odor and bacteria. And it's just so nasty that you'd think cleaning there is gross, but just wetting down the filth and drying off is not. Do better. When my wife and I first lived together, she also noticed that I took long showers, not any longer than her mind, and she asked about it. I explained that a lot of guys don't clean themselves properly, and I could see a wave of realization about other men before I washed over her. She has had zero objections to my routine as a result. Reply 1. Yep. Also, wear clean clothes. Nothing worse than a well-scrubbed, Axe body-sprayed guy who smells like he rolled in cow dung because he hasn't washed his dungeon since the Biden administration. I'll add, I prefer the straight, I don't bathe smell to the nostril-assaulting heavy cologne with an undercurrent of poop. Finish the job. Reply 2. This makes me feel so much better. I've seen a lot of discourse on Reddit about this, but those who clean properly never mention their shower times, so I thought they were also still taking 3 minutes to shower, and I felt like I was still missing the quick cleaning hack. I'm glad to know my long showers aren't abnormal if you're actually cleaning properly. Reply 3. I am a 44-year-old dude. I shave that backdoor hair weekly and scrub daily. Wet wipes and bidets exist. It's shocking what you can miss just dry wiping. You gotta make sure you are getting the area between back and front too, fellas. Also, when it comes to peeing in a urinal, guys, I can't tell you how many of you I see with stains on your pants because you didn't finish correctly or fire hosed it and got ricochets on yourself. Like, seriously, take it freaking easy. Also, push on your perineum when you think you are finished to drain what is left out. Works like a charm. Again, that area between the back and front is important, my dudes. Reply 4. I think for women it's a lot more, perfunctory? Necessary. Wash all the downstairs regularly, especially during your period, and especially if you were or are only comfortable with pads. By necessity, we have a different kind of relationship with our genitals than the average man does. I've thankfully never dated a man that didn't enjoy a thorough wash, but the horror stories I've heard, yikes. Reply 5. When I was in high school, one of my friends handed out pamphlets that detailed proper washing and general hygiene. Some guys thought he was just trolling, but it eventually turned into group talk from time to time. I think some guys honestly never had that information explained to them. Also, a lot of us were in wrestling and can't be spreading all sorts of stuff on the mats. That's where it started. Story 11. What freedom of speech actually means. Reply 1. This. Same with discrimination. There was an artist a while back who was screaming discrimination or censorship because some gallery refused to feature his or her art. Like they still displayed it, but just didn't make it the centerpiece and spend promotional dollars on it. It's literally impossible for a company to violate the U.S. First Amendment because it only applies to the government. And beyond that, the existence of the internet makes it even more impossible. You can put up a website and say whatever you want. Facebook and Google have no requirement to amplify your stupidity. Reply 2. This works both ways, though. Non-governmental organizations can, and sometimes should, have free speech policies. For example, I think it's important for colleges to have freedom of speech. Not because of the Bill of Rights, but to ensure academic debate. Not everything is a purely legal matter. Colleges don't have to have freedom of speech as a legal requirement, but I think they should. Story 12. Left-hand turns. So many people cut too soon and almost clip you while you're waiting at the red. You should go far enough into the intersection before starting your turn that you are driving straight by the time you pass my car. The driving instructor corrected me on this right away, but too many people never got the memo. Reply 1. I had one recently that cut the left turn so tight that I couldn't make my right turn. Also, a good reason to always look both ways, even if one of the directions shouldn't have any cars in the way. It's equally frustrating when it's a double left turn lane and you're in the leftmost one, and the car to your right forces you to cut the corner right or just let them hit you. Reply 2. Just today, I almost rear-ended a car that did exactly this. They were making a left-hand turn in the middle of a busy street, and I was following them. They then slammed on their brakes to avoid clipping the car in the parking lot driveway they were turning into. It's a good thing I have good reflexes. Who slams on their brakes in the middle of a left-hand turn? Story 13. Merge in road construction areas. They line up a single file and create a backup instead of zipper merging like you're supposed to. Some people will even try to block you from doing it right because they are so stupid. Reply 1. Zipper merging works until it doesn't when the one lane is backed up a mile and barely moving because others are flocking to the left, making those they pass wait even longer in line. Both sides have points. Reply 2. Yeah, you're missing the point though. That one lane shouldn't be backed up a mile. Both usable lanes should be used up until the point where they are supposed to merge. There is no right side or wrong side. It's just two lanes that should be used to their fullest extent, right up until the merge point. Then it's one side, then the other side until it collapses into one lane. Like a zipper. Reply 3. It should also be noted that zipper merging is only when a travel lane ends, almost exclusively found in construction zones. It does not apply to on-ramps, intersections, roundabouts, or any other obscure situation people who whine about zipper merges find themselves in. They are also not the most efficient. The most efficient way to get through a lane reduction is for everyone to be in the proper lanes miles ahead, so absolutely no one has to slow down at all. Story 14. Flush the toilet with the lid open. Reply 1. My husband asked me the other day why I always do this. He thinks touching the toilet lid is gross. I explained that it is not gross because I sanitize the handle, and because I routinely close the lid before flushing. My bathroom has significantly fewer poop particles everywhere than his. Reply 2. See, I'm not worried about this because my toilet has water in it and my poop is below the water. When I flush my toilet, the water drains from the cistern above in a circular motion, pulling the turd through the trap and down the main drain line. Do you all have blender toilets that need lids because crap is flying to and fro like goddamn confetti after the Super Bowl when you flush them? If you look at the inside of your toilet lid, is it just encrusted with all sorts of crap? Wouldn't whatever crap particles were stopped by your non-airtight lid just flit and fly into the air the next time you open the lid? Or are they trapped in the water? If so, how did they leave the water with the crap if water can hold them? Reply 3. Healthy poop floats on the surface of the water. This may come as a shock, but not all germs are visible. Kind of like when you sneeze and you don't see snot go everywhere, but if you don't cover your mouth, they do. Reply 4. If I sneezed into a face-sized toilet where the downward trajectory of my mucus was directed into water and then blew my nose while barely breaking the seal of my cheeks to said face-sized toilet, discarded the tissue, and then flushed, would this be more or less preferable to someone blowing their nose or sneezing into a Kleenex and then balling it up and throwing it away? Is a fart not poop molecules floating around the air? Is a fart poop molecule more harmful or less harmful than a poo molecule that somehow escapes the toilet? Or is it the same? If they're the same, are farts not allowed in your house? Do people have to go outside and fart into a designated cushion? How do you handle visiting a zoo or a farm? Are you currently seeing a therapist for this ill-conceived notion that this poo molecule that escapes a toilet flushing will hurt you? Also, Google says healthy poop does not normally float. It can be if there's gas trapped inside or you have a high-fat diet, but it absolutely is normal for it to sink. So stop lying. Story 15. Lose weight. Exercise doesn't matter much. Still important. It's all about diet. Calories used must be bigger than calories consumed. Reply 1. Well, yes and no. Exercise does matter, but it requires a lot of extra effort. And depending on the type of exercise, you won't burn that many calories. Eating less will give bigger results, and is also a must if you're overeating. With that said, some additional exercise every day like an hour of walking will raise your total daily energy expenditure, so you could either eat more and still lose weight, or simply lose even more weight. Story 16. Walk. I work in a mall and get to work by subway. So many idiots get off the escalator and stop to tie their shoelaces or write a text. It is becoming unbearable. Reply 1. This happened in the doorway of my grocery store before they changed their doors to single-file entry size. The number of people who would stop right in the middle of the doorway upon leaving the store to stare at their phones and be unaware they were holding up foot traffic was much too high. Reply 2. One of my local grocery stores has a big opening, and then a wall of freezers with a one-way opening gate thingy, and there are so many people who walk up to the gate and then stop with their shopping cart blocking the only trance while looking in the freezer to one of the sides. Story 17. Painting their homes. Stop dry rolling the wall FFs. If you have to push on the roller to get paint out of it, put some more paint on the damn roller. Roll all the way from top to bottom every stroke, or you'll see those random splotches in the sheen after it dries. Stop cutting around plates, take them off, and roll right up to the hole. Pull your tape before the paint is cured, or it'll take chunks of paint off your corners when it comes off. Reply 1. Cut in the edges first, with a brush before rolling, otherwise, you will see brush marks texture. Keep brushes and rollers clean and wet rollers slightly before painting. Reply 2. And my God, having a decent brush to cut in with will make the work so much easier. And it's better to be overcautious with masking than not. For those who don't know, different fibers will hold or release paint in different ways. A good brush should give you a fairly sustained release of paint when it has the appropriate amount of paint. Not saturated, not dry. An angled edge. Good quality brush will save your life. No ineffective scratching at walls and shedding hairs, etc. I recommend asking the resident paint person in your hardware store to recommend a compatible brush for your paint. Some may say they are not for water-based paints, for example. Get advice, then read the packaging. The extra $10 will save you $200 in PPT, post-paint therapy. Story 18. Somewhere in your car there is a dial or switch that changes the angle at which your dipped headlights shine. I can say with confidence that in modern Ford, there's a center button in the middle of the light dial. Yeah, go ahead and park your car in front of a wall or something so you can see where the headlights line is and try it for yourself. Now turn that sucker down a few notches so it stops blinding me when I drive at night. Also, a fun fact. If you drive with a heavy load in the back of your car, it will angle the car a little differently from how it normally drives. Consider changing your headlight setting on those occasions. Okay, cheers. Story 19. People say they are jealous when they mean they are envious. Envy occurs when someone else has something you want. If someone has a new boyfriend and you wish you had him, you are envious, not jealous. Jealousy is when you already have something and fear another person will take it away. If you have a boyfriend and that girl at the bar is flirting with him, then you are jealous. Story 20. Argue. The average person either doesn't know how to or chooses not to argue in good faith. For most people, it seems like winning an argument is defined by winning the audience or delivering the best roast. The majority of people, including me, will argue like dickheads because optics matter more than logic. Everyone has probably experienced losing an argument that they were 100% right about because the audience or other party didn't actually care about the logic or soundness of the argument.
Thanks for watching until the end. If you have a similar story to these that you want to share with us, please leave it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave us a like and subscribe. For more videos like this one right now, please stop by our channel. Thanks again, and see you next time.